The Whole Brain Child. This video is based on key insights from the book The Whole Brain Child by Daniel Siegel. Introduction: Survive and Thrive. Daniel Siegel begins by acknowledging the tough realities of parenting. He understands those moments when simply getting through the day feels like a victory. The sticky messes, the bedtime battles, the constant need to referee squabbles. However, he emphasizes that parenting isn't just about survival. It's about helping children thrive, growing into happy, responsible, and well-adjusted individuals. Siegel shares that most parents desire both survival during challenging times and a thriving future for their kids. He points out the unrealistic expectations parents often place on themselves, comparing themselves to an imaginary, superparent who seems to effortlessly balance everything. Siegel proposes a powerful idea. Those challenging, survival moments are actually golden opportunities for growth. When a child is acting out, it's not just a problem to be solved. It's a chance to teach valuable life skills. For example, when siblings are fighting, instead of simply separating them, a parent can guide them in understanding each other's perspectives, communicating their needs respectfully, and finding compromises. It's about turning conflict into a learning experience. He acknowledges this isn't easy, but understanding how a child's brain works can make a huge difference. The core of Siegel's approach revolves around integration, helping the different parts of a child's brain work together harmoniously. He explains that the brain isn't one single unit, but has different areas responsible for different functions. The left brain is logical and analytical, while the right brain is emotional and intuitive. A thriving child needs both sides working together. Siegel uses the analogy of upstairs and downstairs brain, where the downstairs brain handles basic instincts and reactions, while the upstairs brain is responsible for higher-level thinking, empathy, and self-control. The goal is to connect these parts, allowing children to be both thoughtful and emotionally aware. Siegel highlights several key areas where parents can foster this integration. He suggests helping children process painful memories by acknowledging their feelings and providing a safe space to talk about them. This isn't about erasing the past, but about understanding it and learning from it. He also emphasizes the importance of teaching children self-awareness, the ability to recognize their own emotions and how they impact their behavior. When children can pause and reflect, they can make better choices. Finally, Siegel stresses the value of connection and belonging, helping children develop strong relationships while still maintaining their individuality. To make these concepts practical, Siegel introduces several tools within the book. What you can do. Sections offer specific suggestions for applying the ideas to everyday situations. Whole Brain Kids. Sections are designed to help parents explain these concepts to their children in age-appropriate ways, empowering them to understand their own brains and emotions. Integrating Ourselves. Sections encourage parents to focus on their own emotional well-being, recognizing that a parent's own brain health significantly impacts their child's development. A Refrigerator Sheet provides a quick reference guide to the book's key principles, and an Ages and Stages chart helps parents tailor the strategies to their child's specific age and developmental stage. Siegel concludes by emphasizing that parenting is a journey of growth for both parent and child. It's not about shielding children from difficulties, but about helping them navigate those challenges and learn from them. By understanding the brain and applying these integration-focused strategies, parents can move beyond simply surviving and truly help their children thrive, building a foundation for a lifetime of happiness and fulfillment. Chapter 1: Parenting with the Brain in Mind. Daniel Siegel begins by pointing out something surprising. Parents often know a lot about their child's physical health, like when a fever means a trip to the doctor, but often know very little about how their child's brain works. He emphasizes that the brain is central to everything a child does: learning, feeling, making friends, and even just figuring out what they want. Because experiences actually change the brain, understanding how it develops can help parents raise kids who are strong and able to bounce back from challenges. Siegel introduces the idea of a whole brain approach, explaining that the brain isn't just one thing. It has different parts, each with its own job. For example, one side helps with logic and language, while the other deals with emotions and understanding body language. There's even a more primitive part of the brain that handles basic survival instincts. The goal isn't to favor one part over another, but to help all these parts work together. That's what Siegel calls integration. He illustrates this with a story about a little boy named Marco who was in a car accident with his babysitter. Marco kept repeating "Ia-woo-woo," which meant Sophia, the babysitter, and the siren sound of the ambulance. Many parents might try to distract him with ice cream, but Marco's mom, Mariana, understood the importance of letting him process what happened. She had learned about the brain and how it works, so she helped Marco retell the story over and over, acknowledging his feelings and providing factual details. By doing this, she helped his brain connect the emotional part, Sophia being taken away, with the logical part, the ambulance and the accident, allowing him to understand and cope with the scary experience. Siegel explains that integration is like a healthy body where different organs each do their job, but also work together. When the brain is integrated, kids can handle their feelings, make good decisions, and build strong relationships. When it's not integrated, that's when we see tantrums, meltdowns, and other challenging behaviors. He emphasizes that a child's brain is constantly changing and being rewired by experiences, meaning parents have a powerful role in shaping that development. He uses the analogy of a river to explain mental health. Imagine floating peacefully down a river. That's a state of well-being. But if you drift too close to one bank, you hit chaos, feeling out of control. If you drift too close to the other bank, you hit rigidity, becoming inflexible and unable to adapt. The goal is to stay in the flow, avoiding both extremes. Siegel points out that kids, like adults, naturally move between these states, and a parent's job is to help guide them back to the middle ground. For example, a child refusing to share a toy is showing rigidity, while a child throwing a tantrum when someone takes the toy is showing chaos. Ultimately, Siegel argues that understanding integration isn't about making kids grow up faster, but about helping them develop all parts of their brain and connect them effectively. By providing the right experiences and supporting them through challenges, parents can help their children thrive emotionally, intellectually, and socially, building a foundation for a happy and healthy life. He suggests that by being present and mindful, parents can help their children navigate the waters between chaos and rigidity, fostering a sense of balance and well-being. Chapter 2, Two Brains Are Better Than One, Integrating the Left and the Right. Daniel Siegel begins by sharing a story about a little girl named Katie and how a simple illness changed her feelings about going to preschool. Katie loved school, but after getting sick, she became very scared to leave her dad. Siegel uses this example to show how important it is to understand how the two sides of the brain work together. He explains that understanding this can help parents like Katie's dad help their children through tough times. Siegel explains that our brains are divided into two halves, the left and the right. The left brain is all about order, logic, words, and steps. It likes things to make sense and follow a pattern. He playfully points out that even the words describing it start with the letter L. The right brain, on the other hand, is more about the big picture, feelings, and memories. It understands emotions and how things feel, not just what they are. It communicates through things like facial expressions and body language. Siegel clarifies that while people often talk about the left brain and right brain as if they have separate personalities, scientists refer to these as left hemisphere and right hemisphere modalities. He emphasizes that both sides of the brain are important and need to work together. The brain is connected by a bundle of fibers called the corpus callosum, which allows the two sides to communicate. Siegel uses the analogy of swimming with one arm versus two. It's much easier and more effective when both sides work together. He calls this horizontal integration, where the two sides of the brain act in harmony. This allows children to understand both their feelings and their logic, leading to a more balanced life. Siegel explains that young children, especially in their first 3 years, tend to rely more on their right brain. They experience the world through their senses and emotions, without a lot of logical thinking. As they get older, the left brain develops and they start asking why and wanting to understand how things work. The goal isn't to favor one side over the other, but to help children learn to use both sides together. He illustrates this with an example of a 12-year-old girl named Amanda who was struggling with a fight with her best friend. Amanda acted like she didn't care, but her body language showed she was actually very hurt. Siegel explains that she was retreating to the left, trying to ignore her feelings and rely only on logic. He helped her reconnect with her emotions by paying attention to her nonverbal cues and creating a safe space for her to share her feelings. This shows how important it is to recognize when a child is relying too much on one side of their brain and to help them find balance. Siegel introduces 2 strategies parents can use to help their children integrate their brains. The first is connect and redirect. This involves first connecting with the child's emotions, using your right brain, and then helping them think through the situation logically, using your left brain. He shares a story about his colleague, Tina, whose son was upset about seemingly random things late at night. Tina realized her son was overwhelmed with emotions and needed comfort before she could address his complaints. She connected with him by listening and offering reassurance, then gently helped him think through his feelings. The second strategy is name it to tame it. This involves helping children tell the story of a difficult experience. By putting the events into words and making sense of them, children can process their emotions and reduce their fear. Siegel shares a story about a boy named Jack who was scared to ride his bike after an accident. His mother helped him retell the story of the accident, which helped him understand what happened and feel more in control. Siegel concludes by encouraging parents to learn about the 2 sides of the brain and to practice these strategies with their children. He also emphasizes the importance of parents becoming more integrated themselves, using both sides of their own brains to respond to their children with both empathy and logic. By doing so, parents can help their children develop into well-rounded, emotionally healthy individuals. Chapter 3: Building the Staircase of the Mind. Integrating the upstairs and downstairs brain. Daniel Siegel begins this chapter with a relatable story about a brother and sister arguing over a crystal, highlighting how quickly a situation can escalate with children. He explains that a parent's ability to help a child manage big feelings isn't always possible, leading to the central idea of the chapter: helping children develop self-control even when a parent isn't present. Siegel introduces the concept of the brain having 2 main parts, a downstairs brain and an upstairs brain, and uses the analogy of a house to make it easier to understand. The downstairs brain is more primitive, responsible for basic functions like breathing, instincts, and strong emotions like anger and fear. It reacts quickly, like flinching from a fast-moving ball. The upstairs brain, located in the front part of the head, is more evolved and handles complex thinking, planning, empathy, and making good decisions. Siegel emphasizes that the upstairs brain isn't fully developed until the mid-20s, meaning children are still under construction when it comes to these skills. He compares it to a house with a finished first floor but an unfinished second floor, illustrating that children's ability to control impulses and think things through isn't always reliable. A key goal for parents, then, is to build a staircase connecting these 2 parts of the brain, allowing them to work together. This integration means the upstairs brain can calm down strong reactions from the downstairs brain, and the downstairs brain provides important emotional and physical input to the upstairs brain. It's not about suppressing emotions, but about balancing them with thoughtful consideration. The author explains that because the upstairs brain is still developing, it's important to have realistic expectations. Children will naturally struggle with self-control at times. He introduces the amygdala, a part of the downstairs brain that acts like a watchdog, quickly sensing danger and triggering fight or flight responses. Sometimes this is helpful, like reacting quickly to avoid an accident, but it can also lead to impulsive reactions when there's no real threat. Siegel calls this flipping your lid, where the amygdala takes over and the upstairs brain becomes inaccessible. When a child is downstairs, they are less able to think clearly or control their behavior. Siegel then discusses how to respond to tantrums, differentiating between upstairs tantrums, where a child is intentionally pushing boundaries, and downstairs tantrums, where a child is overwhelmed and has lost control. Upstairs tantrums require firm boundaries and consequences, while downstairs tantrums require comfort and soothing to help the child regain control. He stresses the importance of connecting with the child before correcting the behavior. To nurture a child's developing mind, Siegel offers several whole-brain strategies. First, he encourages parents to engage, don't enrage, to appeal to the upstairs brain rather than triggering the downstairs brain. He shares a story about his wife, Tina, skillfully navigating a situation at a restaurant by asking her son about his feelings instead of issuing a command. Second, he emphasizes the importance of use it or lose it, explaining that the upstairs brain needs to be exercised through activities like decision-making, problem-solving, and considering others' perspectives. Parents can ask questions like, "What do you think would be a fair solution?" or encourage journaling to promote self-understanding. Finally, Siegel highlights the power of movement, explaining that physical activity can help regulate emotions and reintegrate the brain. He suggests activities like jumping jacks or taking a walk when a child is feeling overwhelmed. Siegel concludes by encouraging parents to teach their children about the upstairs and downstairs brain, empowering them to understand their own emotions and behaviors. He emphasizes that even parents make mistakes, but modeling self-regulation and repairing relationships after losing control are crucial for helping children develop a healthy, integrated brain. He provides an example of how a parent can apologize and take responsibility for their actions, demonstrating a commitment to growth and connection. Chapter 4, Kill the Butterflies, Integrating Memory for Growth and Healing. Daniel Siegel begins this chapter with a relatable story about a young boy resisting swimming lessons, highlighting how a child's behavior can sometimes seem puzzling to parents. Siegel explains that often, these unexpected reactions aren't about the present moment, but stem from past experiences stored in the brain. He emphasizes that understanding how memory works can be a powerful tool for parents. Siegel tackles two common misunderstandings about memory. The first is the idea that memories are neatly filed away like in a cabinet. Instead, he explains, memory is about connections. When we experience something, our brain links it to similar past experiences, influencing how we understand it. Think of finding an old pacifier. It doesn't just remind you of the pacifier itself, but floods you with feelings and memories of when your baby used it. The brain creates links between brain cells, called neurons, and neurons that fire together, wire together, meaning experiences change the brain's physical structure. A song can transport you back to a high school dance, or a specific smell can evoke a childhood memory. The second myth is that memories are perfect recordings of the past. Siegel clarifies that every time we recall a memory, we subtly change it. It's not a perfect replay, but a reconstruction. This is why people can remember the same event differently. Their state of mind at the time of the event, and when they recall, it influences the memory. Siegel then dives into the two types of memory, explicit and implicit. Explicit memory is what we usually think of consciously remembering events like your first day of school. Implicit memory, however, is more subtle. It's the memory that affects our behavior without us even realizing it. Learning to ride a bike is a good example eventually. You just do it without thinking about the steps involved. Infants primarily form implicit memories, learning about the world through sensations and feelings. These implicit memories create expectations. If a child is always hugged when a parent comes home, they'll expect a hug every time. The author explains that implicit memories can be powerful and sometimes problematic. If a child had a scary experience at a previous swim lesson, that memory can create a negative association with swimming, leading to fear and resistance, like the boy at the beginning of the chapter. This is because the brain is trying to protect the child from a perceived threat. To help children deal with these hidden memories, Siegel suggests a technique he calls using the remote of the mind. This involves helping a child revisit a difficult memory, but with control. The child can pause the memory when it becomes too overwhelming, fast forward through scary parts, and ultimately reframe the experience. David, a father in the chapter, used this technique with his son Eli, who was afraid of woodworking tools after a friend was injured with a knife. By talking through the event and allowing Eli to control the pace, David helped his son process the trauma and overcome his fear. Siegel also emphasizes the importance of simply encouraging children to remember and talk about their experiences. Asking questions about their day, looking at old photos, or creating memory books can help them integrate their memories and make sense of their lives. He acknowledges that children may not always be willing to share, but suggests creative ways to prompt recollection, like playing a guessing game about what really happened during the day. Finally, Siegel stresses that parents also have implicit memories that can influence their behavior. He shares a personal story about how a childhood experience as a medical intern resurfaced when his own son cried, causing him to feel panicked. By becoming aware of these hidden memories, parents can better understand their reactions and avoid unintentionally passing on their own unresolved issues to their children. By shining a light on these past experiences, parents can become more mindful and intentional in their parenting. Chapter 5, The United States of Me, Integrating the Many Parts of the Self. Daniel Siegel presents a compelling story of Josh, an 11-year-old who appears successful but struggles with deep self-doubt fueled by his father's absence. This case illustrates a core concept Siegel explores: the importance of integrating all parts of the self to achieve mental well-being. He introduces mindsight, defined as understanding both your own mind and the minds of others, starting with self-awareness. Siegel explains this through the Wheel of Awareness, a model picturing the mind as a bicycle wheel. The hub represents the center of awareness, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for integration and decision-making. The rim represents everything we can pay attention to: thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories. The Wheel of Awareness helped Josh realize his anxious thoughts weren't him, but simply points on his wheel. He didn't have to be consumed by them. Siegel emphasizes that focusing attention determines our state of mind. Josh's anxiety stemmed from fixating on fear-based rim points, like worrying about grades. By intentionally shifting his focus to other points, enjoying time with friends, appreciating his musical ability, he began to integrate different aspects of himself. This integration is crucial. It's not about eliminating negative thoughts, but about putting them in perspective alongside positive ones. It's about recognizing that perfectionism, while a part of him, doesn't define his entire being. Siegel highlights a common issue: getting stuck on the rim. This happens when we identify with a temporary state of mind, as if it's a permanent trait. Instead of saying, "I feel lonely," we say, "I am lonely," turning a feeling into a self-definition. He uses the example of a 9-year-old struggling with homework, who might conclude, "I'm stupid," instead of recognizing a temporary difficulty. Parents can help by encouraging children to recognize the multitude of parts within themselves, fostering mindsight and preventing rigid self-perception. The author explains the neuroplasticity of the brain, meaning it changes based on our experiences and where we direct our attention. When we focus on something, neurons fire, creating new connections. This is how practice builds skill. Siegel illustrates this with examples like violinists developing larger brain areas for finger dexterity and taxi drivers having enlarged hippocampi for spatial memory. He shares the story of Jason, a 6-year-old plagued by fears of his ceiling fan falling, demonstrating how mindsight can reshape the brain. By learning to shift his focus from fear to calming visualizations, Jason created new neural pathways, reducing his anxiety. Siegel introduces 2 key strategies for nurturing a child's developing mind. The first is helping children understand that feelings are temporary, like weather patterns. While acknowledging difficult emotions, it's important to convey that they will pass. The second is sift, a process of paying attention to sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. This helps children become aware of their internal experience. A parent might ask, "What do you hear? What images are in your mind? What are you feeling?" This practice builds self-awareness and allows children to identify and manage their emotions. To further illustrate SIFT, Siegel provides a dialogue between a mother and her child in the car, demonstrating how to explore internal experiences in a playful way. He also introduces mindsight exercises, like focusing on breath or visualizing calming scenes, to help children return to the hub of their wheel of awareness. These exercises promote calm and integration. Siegel emphasizes that these aren't quick fixes, but tools that, with practice, can reshape the brain and empower children to regulate their emotions and respond to challenges more effectively. Ultimately, Siegel argues that mindsight empowers children to move from being controlled by their experiences to actively influencing them. By understanding the wheel of awareness and learning to shift their focus, children can integrate the many parts of themselves, fostering resilience, well-being, and a sense of agency over their own lives. He encourages parents to practice these concepts themselves, recognizing that a parent's own integrated mind is a powerful model for their child. Chapter 6, The Me-We Connection, Integrating Self and Other. Daniel Siegel begins this chapter by sharing a story about a family struggling with a child who seems selfish. Ron and Sandy, the parents, noticed their son Colin had trouble thinking about others' feelings, even when it caused problems for his younger brother. Siegel explains this isn't unusual. Kids naturally focus on themselves, but it's important to help them learn to consider others. He emphasizes that developing empathy isn't about changing a child's personality, but about helping their brains grow the connections needed for understanding relationships. Just like some kids need extra help learning to read, some need extra support in learning to relate to others. It's a developmental issue, not a character flaw. Siegel introduces the idea of mindsight, which is about understanding both your own mind and the minds of others. He explains that previous chapters focused on building a strong sense of me, but this chapter focuses on building a sense of we. He believes learning to balance individuality with connection is essential for kids growing up in today's world. Happiness comes from being connected to others while still staying true to yourself. Mindsight is the key to achieving this balance. Siegel clarifies that mindsight has two parts: personal insight, which is understanding yourself, and empathy, which is understanding others. The author explains that the brain is actually a social organ, meaning it's designed to connect with others. Our brains are constantly influenced by the people around us, and relationships actually shape the way our brains develop. He points out that studies show people are happier and healthier when they focus on helping others, rather than just themselves. This is because the brain is set up for interpersonal integration, meaning we're meant to connect with others while still respecting our differences. Siegel then dives into the fascinating discovery of mirror neurons. These special brain cells fire both when we perform an action and when we see someone else perform that same action. It's like our brains are automatically mimicking what we observe. This is why we might yawn when someone else yawns, or feel thirsty when we see someone drink. These neurons are thought to be the basis of empathy, allowing us to understand and even feel what others are feeling. The author explains that mirror neurons respond to intentional actions, meaning actions that have a clear purpose. They help us predict what others are going to do and even understand their emotions. This emotional contagion means we soak up the feelings of those around us. To help children develop these skills, Siegel stresses the importance of creating positive relationships. He explains that children develop mental models about relationships based on their experiences with caregivers. If a child has consistent, loving relationships, they'll learn to trust others and feel secure. But if their relationships are cold or critical, they may develop a negative view of relationships. He emphasizes that parents can influence this by modeling healthy relationships themselves. Siegel then offers two specific strategies to help kids integrate self and other. First, he suggests increasing family fun. Spending quality time together, playing games, and just enjoying each other's company strengthens bonds and creates positive memories. He explains that fun releases dopamine in the brain, which reinforces the desire for connection. Second, he encourages parents to teach kids how to navigate conflict constructively. This involves helping them see things from other people's perspectives, listen to nonverbal cues, and take responsibility for their actions. He uses the example of a child who redecorates a room without considering his brother's feelings, explaining how a parent could use that situation to teach empathy and problem-solving skills. Siegel concludes by emphasizing that developing mindset is a lifelong process. He encourages parents to reflect on their own life stories and how their past experiences have shaped their relationships. By understanding their own emotional history, parents can better support their children and create a loving and secure environment. He reiterates that even challenging childhoods don't determine a parent's ability to raise well-adjusted children. By making sense of their past, parents can break negative patterns and create a positive legacy for their kids. Ultimately, Siegel believes that nurturing a child's developing mind involves helping them balance their individual identity with their ability to connect with others. Conclusion: bringing it all together. Daniel Siegel concludes his book by reminding parents that helping their children grow happy and healthy lives isn't about big, fancy gestures, but about the everyday moments they share. It's about using both the good times and the tough times as chances to help kids develop their brains in a healthy way, becoming what he calls whole-brain children. This means helping them grow up to be happy, have good relationships, and feel good about themselves. Siegel explains that understanding how the brain works can actually make parenting easier. Instead of just trying to survive the difficult moments like tantrums or arguments, parents can use these times to connect with their kids and help them learn. When parents understand how a child's brain is developing, they feel more confident in handling challenges and building a closer relationship. It's about knowing your child's mind and helping them shape it in a positive way. This isn't just about what a child is like now, but about who they will become as a teenager and an adult. The author emphasizes the importance of integration, which means using all parts of the brain together. He uses the example of a child learning to sift, noticing their sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. If a child can do this, they understand themselves better and can control their reactions. Similarly, learning to handle conflict in a healthy way teaches kids that even arguments can be opportunities to understand others. It's about thriving, not just surviving, and preparing a child for a good future. Siegel points out something amazing: our brains are connected to others. He explains that we have mirror neurons, which help us understand what others are feeling. This means that when we help our children develop their brains, we're not just impacting their lives, but also the lives of everyone they interact with. For example, if a child learns to understand their own feelings, they'll be better at understanding the feelings of their friends and family. He uses the idea of helping kids turn implicit memories they don't consciously remember into explicit memories they can talk about. This helps them learn from their experiences and build stronger relationships. The author shares heartwarming examples of young children demonstrating this kind of self-awareness. A 3-year-old was able to express missing his parents and enjoying time with his babysitter. A 7-year-old decided to focus on having fun at a picnic despite a hurt thumb. These examples show what's possible when parents use a whole-brain approach. Siegel believes that when kids learn to understand themselves, they can take control of their lives and make choices that lead to happiness. Siegel highlights the long-term impact of this approach, suggesting that parents are actually giving a gift to future generations. Imagine a parent raising a child who then raises their child with the same understanding of the brain. It's a legacy of happiness and well-being. He encourages parents to share what they've learned with others, teachers, caregivers, and other parents, to create a community that supports children's emotional health. He acknowledges that parenting isn't easy and that mistakes are inevitable. The goal isn't perfection, but intention and attention. It's about being mindful of the opportunities to nurture a child's development, even if you can't take advantage of every single one. He reminds parents that they don't need to constantly talk about the brain, but simply to be present and connected with their children. Ultimately, Siegel wants to empower parents. He believes that what they do matters profoundly, and that they have the power to shape their children's minds in a positive way. He encourages them to be present with their children, connect with them through the ups and downs of life, and remember that even the hard times are opportunities for growth. By nurturing a child's whole brain, parents can help them become happy, healthy, and fully themselves, and pass on that gift to future generations. And that brings us to the end of our summary of this book. I hope you found it insightful and valuable. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe for more. Your support helps us bring you more great content. Thanks for watching.